Welcome to Speculative Sandbox, your audio playground for creative storytellers. My name is Vicky Lon, and in each episode, I and a guest will unpack a trope with an eye for world building, character development, or narrative structures. You can also join the conversation on TikTok and Instagram. For those times when the real world just doesn't cut it, let's get lost in a fictional one. All right, Teddie, have you ever had to keep a major secret?
Absolutely, more than one.
Okay, all right. Pick one. Pick one and keep it in your mind. Um,
Okay.
a major one. We're talking a major one. I'm going to ask you some detailed questions, and I don't want you to divulge the actual details
Good,
unless you.
because I can't.
Yes, which makes this even juicier. Okay,
Okay.
so let's talk about the conditions of the secret and how it affected you. So my first question is, were you asked to keep the secret by someone else?
Absolutely, yes.
Why did they tell you? Were you significant to the secret?
Indirectly,
Okay.
it's a family secret. So while
Oh,
I was not directly involved, yes, indirectly.
okay. How did you feel about the secret?
Shocked.
Okay.
That's just off the top of my head, shocked.
Okay.
Yes.
Did the secret itself threaten or risk anyone's livelihood or quality of life?
If revealed, most definitely.
Okay. Were you an important part of the secret? As in, do you play a role or are you just an observer?
No role in the secret. I was just someone who was told a really important secret that I really did not want to know.
Oh, okay. So then did you change your own actions based on the secret?
Not actions, but maybe perception of the person that was involved
Okay.
in the secret.
Okay. Did you come to realize that someone else had a different perspective of that same secret?
Well, two people
Okay.
definitely. The two people who were involved in the actions that led to the secret being held and kept
Mhm.
in the first place. Absolutely. Yes, I feel of the four people who know the secret, and one of those people are now deceased. It is like a deep kind of secret that you don't really share, but I got pulled into it. I probably feel very differently about it than the others.
Okay. Does this mean that people were talking about the secret?
No,
Okay.
no. As I said, there are only, well, five. I forgot my husband. I tell my husband almost all secrets.
That's how it goes. You
Yeah.
tell one, you tell both.
And then he's like, "Why did you tell me that? It was terrible." I said, "Because I couldn't keep it to myself, but I couldn't tell anybody." No. This is something that I would have been happy to, and I mentioned to you before, I'm 60. I would have been happy to never know this ever in my life so far.
Oh, okay. Did the subject of the secret ever have a chance to tell their own story?
No, because they're dead.
Oh.
I know this could go sideways in many ways.
Okay. Final question then. I won't torture you any further. If you could categorize this secret into a fictional genre, which would it be?
Oh, definitely suspense and mystery suspense thriller. The genre I actually write in.
Oh, okay.
It would be good book material, but I don't know.
Domestic thriller?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Teddy, thank you so much for letting me workshop that secret. I will not pry any further. Your secret dies with you because I don't know it, so it's not going to die with me. I don't know
Thank
anything.
you so much.
All right, Teddy. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about secrets in fiction. Please introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us what your latest projects are.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me this morning. I'm really excited about being here. My name is Teddie Peacock. I am a mystery suspense thriller author. I wrote and published my first novel at 59. It was kind of one of those bucket list things that I did, and I'm so happy I have. It's just opened a whole new world to me. I have two published novels. The first that we will probably be referencing a little bit this morning is called Secret Keepers.
Okay.
Like, how appropriate is that? And the second one I have is Come Back Home. They are both what I would call domestic suspense novels that have a Southern vibe. They're set in the South, and they're all about families and relationships, and really crazy things happen to ordinary people. And I really dive into how they respond. My tagline when I'm writing and when I'm promoting my books is, how far would you go? Because we
Ooh,
all think that there are things that we would never do and lines we would never cross. And let me tell you, you probably don't know that until you really get there.
interesting. So how much of your books are inspired by your real life secrets?
um, my second one, Come Back Home, probably a little bit more so. It hits a little closer to home, if I can say that. My first one, Secret Keepers, a little bit, a little bit. It's inspired by the icebreakers secret that we talked about that we cannot talk about, and that first book, Secret Keepers. I also wanted to kind of explore just secrets and how they impact us. And I know all families have secrets that they don't share,
Hmm.
and they just don't for various reasons. And I know that when we see, like, on news media, and you see these really kind of violent crimes happening, and there's always that one interview with the person, the neighbor or the friend or the classmate, or whatever, some kind of maybe not extremely close relationship with the suspect. And what do you always hear? You always hear, they were such a nice person.
Mm.
I never thought they would do that. I would never, ever expect that person to do that. And so I like to explore kind of the psychological aspects of those actions. Oh my gosh, why did that person do that? What made that person do that? It's like, is it environment? Is it genetics? What happened? I ask my husband all the time when we see these kind of stories. I say, why do you think they did that? And my husband is an engineer by trade, so
Hmm.
that says a lot about him. He's practical, pragmatic, a critical thinker, and he looks at me. He says, "I have no idea why they did that." Why are you asking? Because I really want to know. I
Yeah.
really want to be able to get in that person's mind and say, what caused them to wake up one day and say, I'm going to go out and do this? Was it just a snapping moment? Was it something that was building? And yeah, so that's where my mind goes. I kind of wander in the weeds with those kinds of things.
I love that, and I relate. So when you brought up the news, watching the news, there was a perfect storm of literary devices that appeared in one particular news story a couple months ago. And being a writer and watching it, I was just like, "Oh my God, this has to be a book." So I'll kind of tell you what happened. Um, Someone burnt down a church. It's a very beautiful, old school, classic little church. We believe it's arson, but anyway, so they burnt it down. And what the news story shows is footage of the caved in church roof. Very, very sad. That thing has been in the community forever. But then they start saying, okay, this is possible arson. It was very early. It was like right after they learned about it. And as I'm watching it, the sign in the front of the church says, "Welcome, new pastor." And then they interview like a local who's just like a character. It's very rural, like a very interesting character. And then they show an interview with the police detective who's this young guy. And it's just, to me, it's like
And
this,
your mind starts clicking.
yes,
Exactly. Yes, yes. I have been there. I have
yes.
been there. I have to tell my family and friends, be nice to me because you might appear in a story. You're all, I know, and I don't know. I mean, I think it's a really great thing about being a creative person and how your mind works.
Hmm.
And it's maybe like a bad thing because you've got to rein it in a little bit. You're like, okay, this is a current news story. And
Hmm.
if I do write about it, do I try to do it while it's relevant. How far away do I need to stray from that truth so I don't get sued,
Yeah.
or those kinds of things. Yes, I understand. I understand. I think it's a curse in some ways.
Okay, so then let's dive in. So secrets, as you talked about, can fuel an entire genre of storytelling. And I also find that secrets doesn't necessarily even have to be in thrillers, but they could be used as a literary device to build tension and intrigue, right? So like limited point of view builds secrets so the reader doesn't know what's happening, and that compels them to want to finish reading. But in this case, let's talk about the genres. So what are some common secret plot devices that we see in mystery and thriller, for example? What are some typical uses? A
Well, I mean,
murder?
yes, usually, uh, well, it depends, but I think some of the common things that you see, like some type of violent crime, or in the domestic aspect of the genre, affairs,
Okay.
relational situations where people need to keep secrets, because it's going to impact their relationships or whatever. I mean, obviously, when you're talking about murders and sexual assault and, some of these other violent things, people want to keep those secrets because it's a crime, right?
Yeah.
And the perpetrator does not want to get in trouble. They don't want to get caught. Sometimes people who know about these things, who don't really come forward, they don't want to be involved, or maybe they have some involvement with it or think they're going to get in trouble or that kind of thing. In my mind right now, as we're talking about this, and my husband was in the military for 24 years, and one of the things that he always said, and it's like pounding in my mind right now, is he would always say, like, about accidents or where things would go wrong or whatever. And they talk a lot about safety and that kind of thing, and he would always say somebody knew. And so I think, it really applies to their particular experience in the military. But like in our lives, so we were talking earlier about the news segments, somebody knew that there was something going on and that there was something not quite right or
Hmm.
something off. And for me, like in this particular genre, I think there's a lot of exploration by a lot of authors, myself included, is whatever that crux is, whatever the big secret is, people know about it, but they might not talk about why?
Hmm.
Why are you not sharing it? Do you need to share it? Obviously, if it's like we said, it's a violent crime or something,
Yeah.
absolutely not. You want to keep that hidden. I think it kind of just depends on whether you're talking about, that crime, or whether you're using that other plot device of in the relationship aspects of, why are you keeping that secret? One thing, as we're talking about this morning, and as you told me earlier, used across all the genres. I think one of the things, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself here a little
No
bit,
worries.
but particularly in the suspense
Hmm.
thriller genre, I mean, there's going to be secrets. It's to pull the reader in. It's to move the action along. It serves a purpose in the plot, that kind of thing. Um, you've got to have something that's high stakes. It's got to
Yeah.
be high stakes. We all have secrets, right? I mean, we all, it's not a secret right now, but I'm wearing my slippers, and the back of my hair doesn't look very nice. And I just closed that one. But we all keep secrets and share secrets, and they're tiny little things we do that are not big things, little white lies, I guess we call them, and then the bigger things. But in my genre that I'm writing in, um, that secret, man, it's got to be high stakes, and it's got to be big, and it's got to be very impactful.
Okay. And it's usually that event that drives everything else in those books, right?
Um, Typically, yes, I would say yes. In my first book, Secret Keepers, it's multi-layered like an onion, I guess. There is this super big secret, and it's revealed pretty early in the very beginning of the book. what it is and how it impacts people. But it opens, one of the main characters is murdered. He dies unexpectedly, and one of the other female main characters is trying to unravel all of it because it was their friend, and a lot of history there and that kind of thing. But she opens Pandora's box by really digging into this. And as we go along, while she's trying to figure out why this character was murdered, which she is completely convinced that he was, even though he was a bad person, she wants to dig into that and figure out, what really happened. It opens Pandora's box for herself and for other characters as they're delving into this big secret that they've all known and kept and really didn't talk about it for different reasons. All these other secrets just come flying out of Pandora's box, and it's like, wow, these people are messed up. They have so many secrets.
When you are progressing through your book and thinking, so now we're thinking like thriller, domestic thriller, suspense novels. What is the art to peeling back the onions of secrets? Do you start with, like, is your intent to fool the reader, have them think one way, and then twist them the other way, and then twist them again? Like, what drives the order of secrets?
Well, in the genre, as you well know, Frida McFadden, the queen of the plot twist. She is phenomenal at doing this. It's gotten pretty commonplace in the genre to have a lot of just crazy plot twist, and so you're keeping a lot from the readers.
Mm-hmm.
And using a lot of misdirection and a lot of red herrings where you're pointing at one person or one scenario, and it's not that at all, because you want them to keep turning the pages. You want to tell a really good story, but at the end of the day, we all need to tell good stories, right? That keeps our readers turning the pages. And one thing I've noticed, and I jumped into this genre a little late, but one thing I've noticed in this genre particularly, it's got to be really fast paced.
Okay.
Are the readers going to put it down? What I did personally in my first one, because there's a lot of characters and it's really multi-layered and a lot of secrets being revealed and that kind of thing, I tried to end every chapter with a question for the readers.
Ooh. Okay, to like get them to want to immediately start the next chapter.
Yes, that's the simple answer is I need to find out what's going on. And sometimes you get the readers to ask that question subconsciously by actions that the characters are taking or how the plot is progressing. And sometimes it's through inner monologue or conversation, dialogue with the other characters. My first book is written in first person point of view with three characters. They're telling their version of the events of what happened, and it's through the years. It's not just what happened in a week. It takes place when these characters are in their early 20s and they're pushing almost 50, and as this kind of really comes to a head. And so in suspense and in thrillers, a lot that first person point of view is used, so you're able to really get into that character's mindset and their inner monologue. But we all know that when we start digging around in our own minds, right, there's cobwebs back there, and we make connections that might not always make sense to anybody else. It's that individual perspective, and you can take that same event. And we all played that game when we were little, where you tell the secret, and then by the end, what it is completely different than what you started out with, and because everybody has their own perspective. And so you're taking that event and you're looking at it from multiple perspectives, and you're getting some germ of truth in all of it, but it's changing based on what that character is bringing, their mindset, their life experience, the emotional baggage they already have. Our minds protect us from bad things.
Mm-hmm.
So it tries to make us either blank out completely about bad things, or it tries to put some kind of positive spin on it. And so, but I try to either through something in the plot or through that inner monologue or dialogue, like I said, get that reader to care enough to ask questions so that they move on to the next chapter. And it's kind of hard sometimes,
Yeah.
that as well. It's kind of hard. How much do you tell? How much do you let the reader guess or, suppose? How much background do you need? It all gets but you need to move it along in suspense, particularly. You need to move it along at a pretty fast pace to keep your readers engaged, keep them interested.
You mentioned earlier, going back to, there was one thing that you mentioned about you want to kind of you don't want to be too explicit. You kind of want the reader to start thinking subconsciously through the clues that you're putting
Right.
down. I think that's a really good thing to note because I find that the feedback I hear for beginning writers as they're getting in there is that they're over explaining. They're talking too much about it. They're not letting the reader join the writer in connecting the dots and making me feeling those feelings, leaving enough room for interpretation for the reader to kind of immerse rather than hand holding them through the experience.
Right.
So how do you find that perfect balance between giving them just enough information for them to kind of come to their own conclusions about things?
I'm still working on that
Okay.
every day. Like I said, my first book was had a lot of characters, very character driven, written from three points of view. So I had to make sure that as I'm writing in each character, that the readers were not, getting confused.
Okay.
And so you do have to do some background. I am a very descriptive writer, but then you have to go through and excerpt passages. They don't need to know everything, and it is difficult. I think the first draft, you just write it, and then when you go back through and read it, or someone else reads it, or you read it aloud, or whatever, you're like,
Hmm.
okay, do we need that whole paragraph about what this looks like or how this character needs to react, or you don't have to tell everything. You're right, you do need to leave that room. And like I said, it is a work in progress for me every day, but because I write a lot of description, and the feedback that I've gotten from readers so far is, we know your characters, we know who they are, we know what they're about. But I think it is interesting because I have read some reviews, which you shouldn't do that, of course, but we do it from time to time, that people have such a whole different perspective of what you're trying to convey. And I think that's really cool. And I think it's interesting that, wow, they are thinking something about these characters and about the action, about the plot that I didn't even think about. And so, I mean, I guess the advice I have for myself and for everybody else is to write it all down and then just go back and cut out, because you can always, always, always delete.
Yeah.
It's so much more difficult to add to. And
Uh-huh.
I am the delete person, and you can probably tell that by I like, my husband says, I like lots of words and I speak them all and use them all every day. You can always go back and edit out, but when you're still trying to flesh out that character and their motivation and your action and the plot arcs and all the relationships and all of this stuff, it's so much harder to go back in and say, I don't know how this fits together.
Yeah.
You can always go back and say, yeah, that didn't fit, that didn't work. And one thing I've learned through doing this, and well, I have 2 degrees in English, so I'm always going to overthink, overwrite, overspeak, over all of it, just all of it. I'm just going to overdo. Everybody's not that way. And I think you need to find that happy medium. And it's like I did when I was in teaching. You have to approach it so that you don't treat people like kindergartners,
Mm.
but everybody is not on the same reading curve that you are. They've not read everything you've read. They've not had the experience. So it's trying to find that happy medium of how much do I need to tell without insulting my readers.
Mm.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
no, I totally get that. I read
It
some books where it over explains or they say something more than once, and I'm like, I know, I know, I know, I know,
well,
as from a reader's
I
perspective.
I like to hope, and I know that it's true, and I'm finding that readers are so intelligent. And even when you're reading those quick popcorn reads, you just want to read quickly because you're just looking for something different, or you're not looking for something really deep, or you've read something that just emotionally gutted you and you need to read. You still have to respect your readers.
Hmm.
And um you have to know when to allow them the room to fill in the blanks
Yeah.
if they need to. And I would much rather have somebody come back and tell me, I needed to learn a little bit more about that, or I didn't know what you're talking about there, than for somebody to come back and say, gosh, this author's really insulting our intelligence. We're
Yeah.
not kindergartners.
I
And
will, this is how I felt reading one of the Twilight books. It's New Moon. No, the third book. I forgot what the third book. New Moon, right? Yeah, Twilight, Eclipse. It was Eclipse. There were so many times reading that book where, and I think I might have said this on this podcast before, and much love to Stephanie Meyer, of course. She's filthy rich off of all of our speculations and feedback.
yes, we are
Um,
not going to miss her at all, are
yeah,
we?
she's laughing her way to the bank. For me, it was she would write the scene. There would be a scene showing the event, and then there'd be a scene later where the vampires are talking about the event, and then there's a scene immediately after where Bella is clarifying what they just said about the event that I
That's
just read.
annoying. Yes, it
So
is. As
I
a reader, it's annoying.
yeah, that would probably be one of my bigger criticisms of that. And anyway, okay.
Did you read that as an adult or as
I
a
read
young
it
adult?
in my 20s. I read it like in college.
Your reading perspective and life experiences were much different at that
Mm.
phase in your life than they were if you had been reading it when you were 12 and 13.
Okay, that is a very good point. That is a very good point because I I'll go back and read some of my books from middle grade and I'll be like, "Oh, this is different than what I thought it was." And not that it was
And
bad, but just different.
And you have to think about the time that, when that was written, it's different than the time we're living in now because the market and the demographics that was written for, honestly, were teenagers.
Mm.
And
Yeah, young
teenagers
adult.
at that point were a lot different than teenagers now. Teenagers are so much more savvy now. And so, I mean, and that's why, I do. And I have to say, I read all of those books. I did the Vampire Diaries. I did a lot of that stuff with my daughter, my adult daughters when they were teenagers. And then also, I taught college writing courses for 10 and 11 years, almost 11 years. So how I could relate to my young, 17, 18, 19-year-old students is I would watch and read all the stuff they did. It hit really differently for me than it did for them.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that, but I totally agree with what you're saying about, and it annoys me as a reader. And so I try to always remember that even though you're a writer and you're a published author and, you want things to go however you want them to go in your writing,
Hmm.
because ultimately it's your creation and your baby. I try to look at things a lot of times from that reader perspective,
Yeah.
and you're absolutely right. Hey, I may not be the smartest person in the room, but I don't need you to tell me 3 times that you're setting up the scene.
Hmm.
And I think another thing, kind of piggybacking on that, we read so much differently than we used to because we're very visual now. We live in a very visual world. Like right now, you and I are looking at each other, right?
Hmm.
And then later, somebody's going to be looking at us and listening. And I think it's just kind of a different world that we live in. And when we used to read books, we used to have to use our imagination all the time.
Yeah.
That's all we had. We didn't have book trailers and YouTube and TikTok and movies and Netflix and all. And so we're just so much more visual
Hmm.
than we were then. And I don't think we need all that setup anymore. Do you? I don't think that
Well, what
readers
I'm
need
hearing
that much
is,
setup.
especially in traditional publishing, what I'm hearing is they're like, let's get the story started. Let's go right out the gate. That seems to be
Well,
the
and
ask.
yes, I will tell. Yes, exactly. You're exactly right. And particularly in the genre I'm writing in, they're like, you need to set something up in the first 10 pages, even in the prologue. If you write a prologue, there needs to be something crazy happening in the first 10 pages because people are going to put it down and not want to look at it.
Yeah,
And
it's
we live
become a
here.
marketing tool. Your book has to like so much of it's marketing now. It's not just storytelling.
Exactly. I agree with you completely.
Okay, so coming back to secrets so quick, I have a question for you. What do you prefer? When the secret is kept from the characters or when the secret is kept from the audience?
As a reader, I like when the secret is kept from the audience
Okay.
because it encourages me to read, right, and to continue on and see oh my goodness, particularly coming back to that suspense genre. You don't want to figure it out 10 pages in what's going on. You want it to hold your attention and keep twisting the plot until the end. As a writer, and my personal preference, because I'm really into relational issues and relationship and kind of that deep character development, I like when my characters keep secrets from themselves. Sometimes they're
Ooh,
not
how do they
truthful
do
with
that?
you, just not being truthful with yourself
Okay.
about things. um we all kind of do that, when you put on your pants, your favorite pair of pants, you're like, "Ooh, these are tight. Oh, well, I ate too much today,"
It's
or
shrink. It's shrink in the wash.
it shrank, or, oh, my stomach, I'm having some issues. I'm a little
Hmm.
bloated, whatever. And the reality is, girl, you've gained 5 pounds and you just haven't gotten on the scale, or you have, and you didn't want to admit it. And so those are kind of the things are, in relationships where you don't get treated well, and you're like, oh, well, it was me.
Hmm.
Those coping kind of mechanisms. I like to see my characters in my writing. I like to see my characters definitely keep secrets from each other because I think it makes it more interesting because we all do that. In real life, we all do that. And I know in our writing, it's got to be larger than life. And, you don't want to read about the boring and the ordinary because, hey, we live that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Why
That's
do we
yeah,
want to
right.
read about that? We don't want to read about that.
It,
And we grew a whole generation on reality TV
hmm.
and those kinds of things. And so we want larger than life things, but as a reader, I want that action kind of moving along, and I don't want to know everything. As a writer, I do want to know everything. I even down to like my character's favorite colors or their favorite music or any of these things
From
because
the
I think
writer's perspective, you're saying? Yeah.
from the writer's perspective, and even from the readers, I think it can add some depth to the characters. But I do character profiles on the major characters I have. I mean, they're not just like in my imagination, or how they start talking in your head,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
wondering if you're paranoid or what's going on. But my characters are like real. They have lots of real characteristics, and so I spend a lot of time doing those kind of profiles. So, kind of a long answer, but a little of both. A little of
Okay.
both, probably.
How would okay, let's talk a little bit more about how real life affects how we kind of how reading, writing, storytelling, and real life intermingle as they always do. So how do secrets tap into the universal human experiences like trust, shame, or fear? And how can writers use this to our advantage?
Well, in real life, which we all have to live, whether whether we want to or not, right? We're there every day. Trust for me, when you're keeping a secret or you're holding a secret, sharing a secret, keeping a secret, the issue of trust is at at the core of it is, can I trust you? Can I trust that other person with the secret? Little secret. I lie to my husband all the time. He'll ask, who ate the last cookie? I don't know. Didn't you do it? I kind of gaslight him, I guess, a little bit. You do
At
it.
least you're self-aware.
It's just the two of us here. And he said, I didn't realize our dogs were that smart. He said, it's just me and you. It was you or one of the dogs. I said, I don't know. Maybe you did and you forgot about it. I mean, it's wrong, and I've just admitted it to the whole
You're like,
world.
I'm gonna channel this into my story. Like my
Well,
villain. This
it's
villain is so
wrong.
realistic.
It's wrong and it's rude, but we all do those little things, right?
Hmm.
For whatever reason, we all do those little things, and we're truthful about it or not truthful about it. But I mean, I'm thinking in real life, like we're talking about big things, right?
Yeah.
Big thing. Trust. Can I trust you to keep the secret? Or can you trust me with a big secret? And I think it's important because you're measuring yourself and that other person. How good is our relationship? What level of trust do we have? Shame, I think that has a lot to do with, I mean, just shame. Like, how bad is the secret? Right? Do I
Yeah.
feel shame in revealing it? Does that other person feel shame in revealing it? It, I think there is just, how deep is that level of shame? And with fear, well, in real life, in relationships, there's a sense of fear of, how are you going to feel about me if I share the secret with you?
Yeah.
How are you going to feel about me? That's that relational, the emotional part of it. The other part of it is, if you're sharing a secret that's criminally wrong, right? Against the law, or could have some real significant physical impact on your relationship, on yourself, on your livelihood, just on your life. Am I going to share that or am I not? And I would tell you that I truthfully, honestly believe in real life that people are more afraid to share things that will change a relationship, or people's perception of them, or their own perception of themselves, more than they are any real physical consequences that might come from revealing some kind of secret.
I have this speculative, hypothetical, hopefully, view of the future. Okay, because you talk about people wanting to hide secrets, and you know how in the last 10, 20 years with social media, um, this is old hat now, old news, but people would share old partying photos of politicians when they were young and dumb and doing dumb things.
Right,
And in that
right,
time, we're all, like, we had no idea a social media platform was going to come around, and they're just doing whatever they're doing, and now they're having to pay for it 20 years later, right? I think that was a big part of the
right.
Me Too movement. What I'm fearful of that's in our future is our phones undoubtedly listen to us, right? Like people talk. In fact, my daughters and I were talking about chickens the other day because she had a chicken stuffed animal, and I remember thinking, chickens are cute. What other chickens can I get her? Stuffed animals. And then all over my TikTok this morning, chicken videos. And so
Exactly. And you're wondering what's going
I'm like,
on.
oh, and of course, at first I don't know. I'm like, oh, a chicken, because it's like we were just talking about chickens, and then they kept coming up, and I was like, oh my gosh, like my phone is like, am I gonna go on Amazon and see chicken products? I don't know, but anyway, the point is, the phone's been listening to us forever, and what I'm worried about with artificial intelligence getting so good, progressively good, so the stuff they're coming out with this year look better than last year, better than the year before, is that it is very easy to take the recordings of your life and just make a movie with it, with just the programming. And so suddenly that secret conversation where you were talking bad about a mutual friend is now out in the open because your phone had it the whole time. Or you shared like fictional world, you murdered somebody, buried them in the backyard, and now the phone has the sound of the shovel, you know what I mean? And it's very easy for AI to just take your geographical location, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
when I think what is the next level of, oh my God, who would have thought 20 years from now that technology would expose what I'm doing here, and I have no idea that that could happen. That's what I think about. And I really hope that doesn't happen because talk about a violation of privacy,
Exactly.
but like
Well,
everyone's secrets will be out.
you just gave me a really good book idea.
Go go for it.
When you're mentioning the phone and the hidden bodies, that is a really good plot device there. I'm gonna have to catalog that one. But I get exactly what you're saying, and it is scary in many ways. And my adult daughters who are just over the 30 hump now, and my youngest one's not quite 30 yet. Of course, they grew up in different technology time, the AOL when you could do
Uh-huh.
messaging, and
Yes.
internet was just kind of starting and all that. But we always told them, I guess we were helicopter parents, and I will admit it, and I don't know if it damaged them or not, but we always told our daughters as they started getting older and the internet started getting a lot more prevalent. I mean, of course they had cell phones and things, but we not like iPhones and that kind of
Mm.
thing. But we would tell them about the internet. It is forever. As they went to
Yeah.
college, it is forever. The sorority parties you went to and all the fun you had. Make sure if you're doing something you wouldn't want your grandma to see, don't let anybody video it because it is forever. And they're like, no, it's not, it's not. My husband, he, in his moment of knowledge and wisdom, showed them way back. And they're like, it is forever. And so I try to, it is a little scary. I mean, it's so great, and the internet's wonderful, and AI. Oh, AI is a whole another conversation. I like watching cute, fun things that are generated with AI. Some of these videos, the celebrities dancing and all. I think that's cute. I watch it more times than I should. But I completely understand what you're saying. You have a digital footprint now that you cannot erase
Yeah.
no matter what you do. And it's a little scary. And we're talking about AI in the creative fields, and you don't know the art, whether it's AI generated, whether it's the actual artist writing. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're having a lot of debate about that in the bookish community, right? In
Mhm.
the writing community, and um, I don't know how I feel. I do know how I feel about that. How I feel about that's probably not all that relevant, but I probably, like you, am more concerned about all of this technology in our personal lives. That
Mhm.
concerns me.
Well,
It
and even in
really
my
does.
hypothetical situation, which nobody get ideas, or if you're a tech giant listening to this right now, which maybe who would you? I don't know. Don't get any ideas or what I just said. We don't need that. But in that case, you're not even choosing to do the digital footprint, right? You're just existing and your phone is next to you. And
Right.
as technology gets more and more invasive, now it's like at what point can you even consent? They already have it.
Well, I mean, it's almost like you would have to be like, that really popular show, I guess, on the History Channel, which my husband does like, The Mountain Men. You would have to just go out and live rurally and have have a flip phone, maybe, with no technology, no computer access, whatever. And I mean, people are still can still find out where you are and what's going on, but you would really have to remove yourself from so much technology that we just take for granted every day to not participate in that. And it is a fine line. It's a
Hmm.
tightrope. And I hope that as we just keep accelerating with technology and it just keeps getting faster and faster and more, I hope that people will realize that there are certain lines you just don't need to cross
So
with.
what's funny is we started this conversation with secrets, then we started talking about tapping into our readers, and then I just introduced a whole nother level of secret, scary, secret revealing technology of the future. Um, Chicken or the egg? Are we paranoid people writing secrets, or are reading secret books making us more paranoid? Or secret-based books, I'm sorry. So when we're reading books about people cheating or people getting murdered, is that us kind of workshopping a fear in our head? Or like what affects what?
I really don't know. That is an excellent question. I really don't know. I would tell you personally because my mind is just wired a little differently as creative types are anyway, as you well know this. The more I watch news media and see all the really bad things happening, the more that I read in my genre, the more likely I am that if somebody drives down my street in my cul-de-sac, I live in a very quiet, nice neighborhood. But if there's a car I don't really recognize because I don't recognize them, or it's not a business vehicle or whatever, a work truck or something, I'm like, okay, what are they up to? Why are they
Yeah.
here? They don't belong. And I have to watch myself, because there can be a perfectly harmless person or situation. And I've already built it into this, like, make this whole story in my head that person's really bad, or, there's something really bad going on. And I think, and that's part of, I think, just your mind already in that creative mode, and
Hmm.
you're making stories in your head and characters are talking to you. Probably, I'm a little bit paranoid, like, kind of with that anyway. But I think, as people and as a society, that the more immersed you get into certain things, that's what you want to see. Your mind subconsciously says, oh, well, this could be this and this could be this. And I think I don't know. I don't know if it's chicken or egg, and I think as people, we're just more anxious today. We're more anxious, we're more fearful of things because we sometimes live in a scary world. And I think we all have to be really intentional about not always allowing those things in our space that make us feel that way.
No, I'm glad
Because
you said that. I feel like we are consuming stories on so many levels, merging together nonfiction and fiction and real life. And does our little caveman brain fully understand the difference between those things as they're, and especially in today's world when you're reading a headline that you don't know is fabricated? It could be a dummy account or some spam or whatever, and it's got
right,
you all freaking out. So it's interesting the amount of vigilance that people have to go through now to kind of be careful, right? I know if I pick up a fictional book about a suspense thriller about a guy who murdered somebody or a woman who murdered somebody, I know it didn't happen. It's in a book, right? But now we're consuming these stories on such short ways,
right.
I guess. Yeah, you know what I mean?
But what you mentioned, that is fictional and is not real, but it did happen somewhere.
Hmm.
It might have been enhanced or whatever. I think that we all need to be careful. I don't even remember how quickly do your eyes see images and your brain translates it. It's some crazy, insane speed with how our eyes see, our brains translate it, processes, that kind of thing. There's so much going on that we're not even aware of in our mind. And I think that we all need to be intentional, and we all need to be conscious as much as possible about what we actually put up in our brain
Hmm.
and, in our minds, and what we think about, what we're able to. And you're right, but this AI technology, it's beginning to get so good that you shouldn't have to do a deep dive on the web to figure out if a news story is right or not, or if a photo of a celebrity or a public figure or a well-known person or a video, if it's true or it's not true. And number one, who has time to do all that? And the second thing is our minds shouldn't have to work that way.
Hmm.
You really shouldn't have to do that. But I I do, and I know even with myself, with this being a genre that I write in, that sometimes can have a lot of violence and a lot of crazy things happen. And my favorite book club, my neighborhood book club that I love and adore, we primarily read true crime and the suspense, thriller, and all. And we just have to do those palate cleansers
Oh
every so
yeah,
often
good
because
idea.
we so much. You're like, no, we need to give that a break, because then you're starting to look at your neighbors like, did they do something bad? Or, when your mind's already kind of going in that direction anyway, and you turn on the news and people are still even watching any of that, or, whatever media outlets that you gravitate toward. And it's like, oh, you could get so afraid that you don't even want to go out your door anymore or interact with other
I had a
people.
situation in my neighborhood. There was a drama that unfolded. I won't go into detail because I don't know if any of them are listening, but there was a pretty big thing. And I'm going to be the main character in my true crime novel where I think everything is my fault. Because I like everything started like people, the characters in the neighborhood started changing the way they were acting. And of course, I only experienced it through my filter. So then I thought, oh my God, it's me. Like it's my fault. They're treating me
Right.
differently because I did something, you know? And then I found out there was this whole scandal that like really affected families. And then I was like, oh, it wasn't me. Like I don't know how good of a detective main
Right.
character I'd be.
But why is your immediate first thought when you're just, being a good person, ordinary citizen, living your life, trying to do the right thing every day, just trying to survive, do the best you can? Why is your first thought, oh, what did I do? How did I contribute to this? And I think that's kind of that, I think it's a little bit of I mean, sometimes, yes, it is personality or
Oh, it's a
environment, but
trauma response.
I think we just live in this really fast world, and our minds. You're right. I mean, we absorb things so much subconsciously that we
Can you
need to
write
be
a
careful.
story now where the main character doesn't has a hard time absorbing the clues because they're so insecure about themselves?
That happens. Of course, we're going to show off a little bit here, and we're going to talk, about some of the other genres. To me, and I love romance. I love that genre. That's where I cut my young adult teeth on all those Harlequin romances and some of those other things. I loved Outlander, that whole series, and it's just evolved so much. But that seems to be kind of a trend, maybe in the romance genre, is one of the main characters is always them, and they're always like, what did I do? It's me. Why are they not responding the way I want? It's me. I'm bad. They're not into me. They don't like me, and all. And I'm like, can we
Really?
like
I didn't
cut
know
some of
that.
that?
Maybe I
Can
haven't
we
read those. Okay, interesting.
can can we well, it's that, the misdirection and the
Ah,
miscommunication, and it's
gotcha.
always the, what have I done wrong? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And this is like another thing I know, like in the suspense and the thriller genre, something I'm seeing a lot out in reader circles and social groups. What is up with these female main characters that are always, I hate to say the word dumb, but so unaware of reading the room and what's going on, and I know we do it like to make the action go faster and to make the plot progress more, but there's just this high level of not being self-aware, and readers, particularly in this genre, are really saying we want smart characters,
Mm.
especially female main characters. We don't want them to always get themselves into these situations. But then it's kind of the catch 22, because if you didn't have those crazy situations, then you really wouldn't have much of a book.
Yeah,
So, it's all kind of this. I don't know. The AI, I am completely with you on that. It is scary. We have so much technology in our homes, and we're just, I don't know if we're unaware or we've just gotten so used to it that we really
normalized.
don't know how invasive it really. I mean, it's so nice to have that Google and say, hey Google, play this music, or hey, adjust the temperature, or we never did Alexa, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Alexa. I mean, we just didn't do that. My husband's a real early adopter of technology and things. He's like, no, I just don't want to do that. But I mean, we do have Google play music and adjust the temperature and all. And I'm like, who is on the other side of that knowing everything that I'm listening to? how warm or cold we keep our homes and
Yeah.
all this other stuff. And it's kind of scary. We need to have some kind of privacy. And we're so open anymore. We share our whole entire lives with everybody. And, we need to have a little privacy.
We need privacy so we can share the secrets in books. Because if everyone's talking about
Exactly.
their secrets, there's nothing to write. Well, Teddy, thank you so much for joining me. We're coming up on time, so I wanted to give you a chance to promote your work one more time and tell our listeners where they can find you.
Um, Thank you so much for having me. I've had a blast and time went by so quickly. I write a mystery, suspense, a thriller genre. My two books that I have out right now are Secret Keepers and Come Back Home. They're available on Amazon and they're also available on Barnes and Noble, Apple, Walmart, a lot of the online retailers. So I hope you'll check them out.
Awesome. Thank you, Teddy, again so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you about this. This was so much fun. I feel like we could have just
Thank
kept
you.
going.
I
Um,
know. Thank you so much. I just enjoyed talking to you so much, and I have hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and a great
awesome.
weekend.
Thank you. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll have one more episode for you next week. So tune in then as well. All right. Bye.